PvP in MMORPGs is something that a lot of game developers have really struggled to get right. And it kind of begs the question, what makes PvP so hard to do correctly in the MMORPG genre? And that's kind of what I want to discuss today in this video. Now, of course, such a nuanced issue should have a script to go along with it, but I've had a very long week at work, so we're going to try and do this off the cuff and see what happens. Now, it's definitely tough to be a fan of PvP in MMOs. You are already playing a niche genre nowadays. MMOs are not nearly as popular as they once were. And then to just further niche it down more, you're playing PvP in MMORPGs. And while, most of the most popular games nowadays are PvP focused games, it just doesn't seem to get the same level of success in the MMO category. And like I said, it kind of just begs the question why. And I think there are, a lot of reasons for it, honestly. And I do think that some of it has to do primarily with the way that a lot of these companies approach PvP and MMOs, but it also just has a lot to do with the type of people I think that play MMOs to begin with. And it's something that, and as an MMO PvP fan, it kind of stinks to say, but it's just something that I feel that a lot of people don't necessarily consider. I do just want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Ewin Racing. I've been using an Ewin Racing gaming chair for my stream setup for a long time now, and I absolutely love it. It's got all the things you would expect from your gaming chair. It's got a lumbar pillow, it's got a neck support. You are able to move the back up and down. Of course, you are able to ascend and descend with an arm on the side of the chair, and you are also able to move and adjust the angle of the armrest, which can be really, really handy depending on where you have your mouse positioned. The build quality of the chair is really, really good. It's extremely comfortable, and I'm able to sit in this thing for hours with absolutely no issue. If you want to pick up a chair for yourself, I personally have the Champion model. You are able to go onto Ewin's website and shop their current available listings. They have some current deals and ongoings on their homepage. You can then look at their list of gaming chairs as well as their new line of gaming desks and find some specials of what they have on for sale. You can pick anything up from their store for 30% off using code DOTS at checkout and clicking the link in the description below. So let's kind of dive right into this today and discuss some of the topics surrounding PvP in MMOs. I feel like starting off, let's start with the types of players who typically end up playing MMORPGs. I feel that although over time, the RPG aspect of several MMORPGs has kind of fallen by the wayside, and I feel like we're more in like an instanced MMO simulator. And in a lot of the games we play, I feel like WoW kind of comes to mind as a really good example of that. I do feel that typically people that play MMORPGs are more towards that RPG style where they're looking for like that PvE RPG experience, but they just want to be able to do it with friends, which is why I feel that raiding is so popular in a lot of MMORPGs. Obviously, you have this opportunity to take on a challenge where in a typical RPG game you'd play by yourself, go into this dungeon and defeat the big bad boss, but you get to do that with friends and with others, and that is what makes MMORPGs so appealing, is the ability to go into this vast unknown world and become something and then be able to do that with your friends. But I feel like a lot of people, again, who play MMOs, they come at that from that wanting that PvE experience, where I feel like if a gamer who's looking for a stereotypically PvP experience, they're more inclined to play something like Valorant, League of Legends, Apex, or something more along those lines, as opposed to going into an MMO. But why? Why are these PvP players not hopping into MMOs? Especially, a lot of MMOs have really, really fun PvP, so why are they not trying them out? And I think a lot of it has to do with the amount of time it takes to start PvPing in several MMORPGs, which is why I think that a lot of games struggle to maintain those audiences. Most MMOs, if you want to really get into PvP, you have to go through a long leveling process, you have to go through a long gearing process, and someone that wants to check out an MMO for PvP, they're not going to really have, I think, the patience to kind of go through this long drawn out process in order to get started. And I also do think that you kind of run into this problem of power versus skill. I think is something that comes into question. I feel like if you asked a lot of MMO players, hey, the longer you play an MMO, should you be more powerful? And I feel like a lot of people will answer yes to that question. But when you bring that into a PvP environment, you kind of have some issues there, where if you have somebody who's been playing a game for a really, really long time, and then they face off against somebody who's not been playing a game for a really, really long time, the person who is newer is just at a distinct disadvantage, not even just from a skill perspective, but just from a sheer numbers perspective. And they just don't have the same level of power that the person that they're fighting against has. And so that's why I typically am a bigger fan of PvP and MMORPGs that just requires less upfront gearing time, and you're just more, you're more easily able to hop right into the action. I looking at some MMOs for some examples, I think the way that Guild Wars 2 has its PvP is really good. I mean, I have my own issues with Guild Wars 2, but I think being able to just kind of jump into the heart of the mist right away and play in PvP, I think is a really, really good thing. You look at Black Desert Online, who has now added its Arena of Solaire queuable PvP, where you can just get a character to level, I think it's like level 60, which basically takes no time at all, and you could hop right into Arena of Solaire and start doing arena-based PvP. You look at a game like Albion Online, which has just a nauseating amount of PvP options, and you can be doing full loot endgame PvP style content in only a couple of hours, and you're basically ready to go. But you look at other MMOs that have typically a much longer lead time into being able to start playing, and that's kind of where I think you lose a lot of people there. And also, I think that there's something to be said about wanting to actually play and develop your skill as opposed to just getting more numbers and getting more power. And I think that's something that, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it's something that New World had for a short period of time and then they got rid of, where, the PvP scaling out in the world was, I think if I remember correctly, it was actually pretty solid. And you could, as a lower level player, fight somebody who was higher level and win if you were more skilled. And if I'm remembering, I don't think people liked that. And so, Amazon backed off on that and made power, more important. And I think that just caused a lot of people to turn PvP off because, it's not fun to have a super unbalanced fight. I mean, I don't think it's fun for either parties, it's fun. It's not fun to just walk into a fight and just get absolutely obliterated. And, I feel like for the other person, I guess, yeah, sometimes it does feel nice to just walk up to someone and just one-shot them, but for all of your encounters to be like that, I don't know. The way that I've always looked at PvP and MMOs is it's kind of like a food chain, and if you kill off one part of the food chain, the rest of the ecosystem is going to die. And I think New World's kind of a perfect example of that, where the open world PvP was pretty thriving, and then they just said, all right, well, if you don't have that much gear, get wrecked. It's tough shit. And it really, really killed the ecosystem. And now, you don't really flag unless you have a really high level of confidence that no matter what type of fight I take, I should be able to have a chance to win. Because you just know that, oh, if I'm too low of a level, I just really, really don't even stand a chance. And again, someone who's looking for like a PvP style of game, they're not going to want to do that. They want to be able to play and have a chance to be able to fight. And a lot of times when you mention that kind of point, you'll have people saying like, oh, well, just PvP at max level with max power and just put in the grind time and, you'll get there too. But effectively, you're just kind of advocating for balance. You're just advocating for balance later, not balance now. And it would be better to just, in my opinion, have everybody on more of an equal playing field. I think it's kind of something that is evident too with World of Warcraft's PvP, where if, PvP and WoW, I feel was always at its peak when gearing was really, really reasonable, when you could gear up a character extremely fast and then hop into the action and start playing. And then the expansions where gearing was a lot more of a pain, and then you also had to start raiding and and doing a lot of other steps to be able to gear up your character, a lot of borrowed power systems. That's when PvP started to become a lot less fun, because again, it kind of ties back into the just really, really high barrier to entry to be able to get started. And I kind of think that that's really what it boils down to. You know, the pillars of why MMO PvP typically struggles. Number one is going to be balance, where a lot of games have it, instead of it being skill-based PvP, it's power-based PvP. And again, PvP fans that are, you know, people that are excited for competition aren't necessarily going to want that. Same thing with open world PvP. You know, a lot of games don't have any sort of scaling, and so you could just get absolutely obliterated by somebody that you're fighting and you have no chance at all. And then I just feel that because of these things, and just generally the lead time it takes to get started in PvP, you know, players that end up playing MMOs to begin with are more interested in the RPG PvE side of the game and not necessarily as interested in the PvP. And then you're also not appealing to a PvP audience at all because of the other things that I mentioned. And so it kind of puts MMO PvP in this weird spot where, you know, you just have like the same PvPers who are just a fan of this sub niche of a genre, you know, kind of rotating between the different games. And then I think even just past that, typically the style of PvP for certain games could also cause players to kind of feel bored. Like, I think, for example, if you look at a game like Black Desert, in my opinion, or Albion in terms of PvP, I find those games much more entertaining to watch and play due to the time to kill in those games. You know, if you have two really skilled players slugging it out, the time to kill can take some time, you know, and you're going to watch an intense fight and then someone will win at the end of the day. But if you look at something like, you know, the way World of Warcraft has been in the past, or the Elder Scrolls Online, where time to kill is super, super low and it takes forever for a game to finish, people can get kind of bored, you know, and people have, you know, it's not really fun to watch two people duel for 45 minutes. It's not really that entertaining. And at some point it's like, well, someone just die already. And I think that other games don't necessarily have that issue. And I think the more I talk, the more stuff comes to my mind. Another problem that I do feel that MMO PvP can typically have is just difficulty to watch. You know, if you watch as somebody who has no idea what's going on, right, you can, I think, sit down and watch a game of Valorant, Rocket League, and have a rough idea of what's going on. You know, ball trying to go into net, people drive cars. You know, two teams, people have guns, they try to shoot each other. You know, but in MMOs, you're watching and listening to the announcers and to the gameplay saying all this stuff, and you're just like, I have absolutely no idea what the hell is going on. And unless you're a player of that game, you don't really know what's happening. And I'm not saying that MMORPGs need to be an esport or should be esports watchable, but it's something to, I think, consider for when someone is trying to get into a game and they're like, all right, let me go check this out and see what it's all about. And they're watching and they're just like, I have no idea what's going on. So I think really for an MMORPG to have successful PvP, you know, it needs to be digestible by the average person watching it and have the ability to understand what's going on. The time to kill needs to not be unreasonably long. And there needs to be a level of balance to where someone who is newer to the game can hop in and play and give it a try. And then have that PvP, you know, the progression in PvP be focused a lot on skill and not solely on power. And I do think there is a place for both. I think a game like Albion really strikes that balance to power, or that power to skill ratio. I think it strikes it really, really well, but not a lot of other games do it correctly. And trying to get into PvP if you're, quote, behind is incredibly challenging. And I just think that MMOs and game devs making it more focused on skill and having some sort of scaling in place, and then rewarding players who do well in other ways, you know, besides just more power, you know, like, you know, cosmetics or other rewards based on the type of your game, I just think would make PvP experiences in MMORPGs significantly more fun. And I think you would increase the odds that it would grow and you would have more people playing. These are just some thoughts that I had, very disorganized off the top of my head. Hopefully you guys did find the discussion entertaining. Let me know what you think though. Why do you think PvP in MMOs struggles? You know, to me, it's obviously what I've laid out here. Plus, it's like I said, a subgenre of a subgenre. But I am curious what you guys think about this topic. So let me know in that comment section below. And if you liked these kinds of discussions, smack a like on the video, and maybe I'll do more. And subscribe for more MMORPG guides, gameplay, and discussions. So thank you all so much for stopping by. I do very much appreciate it. As always, I'm Dots Gaming, and I'll see you all in the next one.